What's up, everyone? You are listening to the Punch Drunk Soul Podcast. These are open, honest, and inspiring conversations with real, everyday people and sometimes experts about their own struggles and triumphs with happiness, fulfillment, and finding a sense of purpose in life. Welcome to episode 3 of the Punch Drunk Soul Podcast. Today we are talking with Lena Elkins. She's a millennial business and marketing coach who works with ambitious millennials from around the world on escaping the 9-to-5 and launching their own freelance businesses. So I've actually gotten to know Lena through her Facebook group, Millennial Go-Getters, which is a really active group of international millennials, all with a similar entrepreneurial spirit. What struck me about Lena was that at such a young age, she seemed to have figured out what she wanted to do with her life and just went after it. She took a big leap of faith to go out on her own and leave the 9-to-5 world quickly after learning that the 9-to-5 world was not for her. And so I wanted to know what it was that made her able to trust herself so much and go out on her own at such a young age. And I wanted to know what she does in her everyday life that might be different than the rest of us who are still trying to figure out who we are. So stay tuned to the end. Lena will be divulging her secrets, including one she's never talked about openly before. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. It is my first ever episode, so yeah, let me know what you guys think. Here we go. All right, well, welcome, Lena. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for being here. So, Lena, if you want to just kind of jump in, maybe tell us a little bit more about yourself and kind of how you got to be where you are now.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area and, with two parents who obviously worked full time, with a strong work ethic, I guess, where like a lot of us, like a lot of millennials, I was raised with the idea where, working is what adulting is.
Yeah.
Going to the 9-to-5 is just like what you are supposed to do in order to succeed as being an adult. So with that idea, obviously I went to college like most of us. And then when I graduated, I actually moved to Tel Aviv, Israel, which is, I guess, what's a little bit different about my story because, most millennials graduate and they start looking for jobs. And I did the same thing, but just in like a foreign country where I didn't speak the language and I didn't know anybody. And it was just like
crazy.
A totally bizarre experience. Yeah. Moved to Tel Aviv, ended up getting my first big girl job, I guess you could say.
That's kind of.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. And it was all right. It was a social media marketing job. And I only lasted there for about 10 months because it was just very clear to me very early on that this is not for me. I just hated everything about the full-time life, having a boss, having that 9-to-5 structure, commuting, being limited by a certain income. Not really feeling like I was able to express my creativity as I needed to.
Yeah.
So I ended up quitting against my mother's recommendation after 10 months. Yeah. And so from there, I decided to launch my own social media consultancy. So that's what I started doing. Didn't have any money, no idea what I was doing, no entrepreneurial experience. Really no clue, but I was just I am determined to be my own boss. I don't care what it takes, so This is what I'm going to do. I quit, started my own consultancy. It turned out to be really successful. And then after about a year of doing that, I was still in Tel Aviv, by the way. After about a year of doing that, a lot of other millennials, people in their 20s and 30s started coming to me asking, wait, I also hate my job. I also want to start my own business. How the hell did you do this and pull this off? At that point, and that's when I started doing full-on coaching. So today, I am a millennial business coach and help millennials basically break out of the 9-to-5 structure and launch online freelance businesses.
Awesome.
So that's the story.
That is a great run-through. I think what really stands out for me about your story is, especially because I think I'm a few years older, not a lot, but it took me the better part of a decade to really listen to myself and be like, the 9-to-5 just really isn't for you. And you got out of it in 10 months, which I think is just so impressive because like you said, it's people think, God, this is what I need to be doing. I should be here. This is what everyone else does. It's really hard to break out of it. So I'd love to kind of hear a little bit more about how you were actually able to do it. Like, were you raised maybe differently to have like more self-confidence, or like what was it that really gave you the chops to like be like, peace out, I'm done?
It's so weird. I don't think I was raised with the confidence, first of all, at all. But I think that when I was little even, and maybe you've experienced this also, because it's funny, recently I've heard a lot of millennial entrepreneurs say this, that there are signs from when they were kids that were just like proof that they were meant to be entrepreneurs one day, just a different perspective on things. Or like one of my clients was telling me yesterday about how when she was little, she had a lemonade stand. She was like 5 years old and she had a lemonade stand, and then like she ran out of the fresh lemons and she didn't know what to do. So like at 5 years old, she like walked to the grocery store by herself and bought like fancier lemonade and then sold it for $1 instead of 50 cents. And like there's all these little things that I think happen to us from childhood that kind of are signs. And I also had a lot of things like that growing up. But I've also, I think for sure, been a doer more than a thinker, I'm one of these people who gets really, really excited about things, and I just have to do them like now, or else I'll go crazy if I don't do them. So right. I think that that's really what ultimately pushed me to quit, is that I just felt like there's no choice here, like there's no other option. What am I going to do? Like spend the rest of my life trying to figure this out or make this work for me? Yeah, like ain't nobody got time for that. Like I need to do this today. So I just quit. And honestly, people ask me all the time, like, how do you know if it's the right time to quit your 9 to 5? How do you really? And there's no right answer, I wasn't prepared. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any money saved. Sometimes you just have to do things and stop overthinking them and just take action, and it works out. It always works out. Yeah, just taking that step, and maybe that is a confidence thing, or maybe it's just like an impulse thing.
Yeah, you just have to, I think it's a little bit about trust too. You just have to trust that it will work out. You'll land on your feet. Sure. You have, worst case scenario, most of us have, friends or family who will take us in for a few days if we need to. There's not, for sure, we're not going to wind up on the street.
Exactly. Yeah, people love to jump to like the extreme worst possible conclusions, like I'm going to be homeless and everybody's going to disown me, and like all of these fears that we have, like they haven't happened yet, and they may or may not happen. So why are we stressing ourselves out about something that hasn't even happened yet? Fear lives in the future. So don't freak yourself out about something that hasn't even happened yet. Focus on what you need to do today, one step at a time.
I like that. Yeah, fear lives in the future. That's a good thing to remember. There's nothing to fear now because
exactly, everything's okay right now. Exactly, you're safe today. Everything's all right. One thing at a time.
I like what you said about having signs maybe early on in your childhood, because now that you mention it, that is something that, like when I was younger, I did kind of a lemonade stand, but I would have I sold like old candy that I had from Halloween or something on the street. And in college, I even did this I sold, at the time, those water bottles, those metallic water bottles were becoming really popular, when the BPA plastic thing was big. And so I started selling those on my college campus.
Nice.
And then, I've always kind of, I guess, been entrepreneurial, but I never really thought I could do that, So I think it is important to, maybe look at your past and see kind of what it was pointing to. I don't think we do that enough. Yeah. So when you finally left the 9 to 5 and you were out starting your own thing, did you have, obviously you said you didn't have savings, you didn't really have too much experience, but what did you do? Were you, for me, before I left all the years, I was thinking shit, I couldn't do that. But I guess when I finally did, I had a game plan. So did you have any sort of game plan, or were you just kind of what do I do now?
I think what was, I guess I was lucky. I had a friend, he's still a good friend, who was also in Tel Aviv. He was from LA. He was a few years older than me, but he had a very successful social media consultancy already. Mm-hmm. So he was a little bit able to take me under his wing and show me the ropes, the early stage, kind of the basics for freelancing. So I think I was really, really fortunate to have him as such a close friend at the time, who was really able to kind of teach me the basics. But otherwise, I didn't have a plan, honestly. I was doing a lot of studying, I just really wanted to start paying attention to the big entrepreneurs who I really looked up to. and who I really wanted to aspire to be toward. So I was really doing a lot of studying and also practicing. You know, I wasn't afraid to just do things before they were perfect. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that trips a lot of people up, is they think that they have to be perfect at something before they offer that service or put it out into the world or decide to actually get started on it. And I never really believed in that. I felt that execution was way more important than perfection.
Yeah, just get out there and do it.
Exactly. And people are going to be so much more forgiving than you think. You know, nobody expects you to be perfect. You know, like, I'm sure, like, when I first launched my website, I didn't know how to, like, open a website or anything, but I have a website. I'm sure that there were, like, grammatical errors, and my pictures looked all, like, you know, like, super amateur. Whatever. But, like, you just have to get started, and then things pick up much more quickly, because then when you start, you then have the self-confidence to continue to learn, to continue to practice, continue to improve without being fearful of what people are going to think of you.
I think that's something a lot of us obviously struggle with, is like the fear of what people are going to think, you know, going out on your own and not having like the normal stable job. That's definitely, I mean, that was a fear of mine for sure. Before I left, was, okay, what are my friends going to think? They're going to think I'm crazy. Like, how did you deal with that? Like, I know you said your mom was not approving of your decision. How did you deal with that?
You know, I think that I agree for sure. I remember also thinking, what are my friends going to think? What's my grandma going to think? What is, like, you know, people on Facebook who I haven't spoken to in 15 years going to think? Mm-hmm. You know, all these different people. But really, I think what's interesting is that instead of us thinking, what do we need, you know, as individuals? Like, what do we need to feel good about ourselves? What do we need to feel successful? All these different things. Instead, for some reason, we have this backward mindset of like, okay, screw what we want. What does everybody else think? And I think that was just a mental block that it took me a long time to get over. But eventually I just realized, like, screw what everybody else thinks. And I don't, it's hard because I guess I've always kind of had that mentality. And I just had this blinding faith. Like, I knew I was going to succeed. And I don't know where that confidence came from, but I just knew that I didn't have a choice to think anything else, you know? Like, I didn't have a plan B. I don't really believe in plan Bs. I think that if you have plan Bs, then it's like kind of a comfort point. It's setting yourself up for failure. It's something comfortable to lean back on. I knew that I didn't have a choice. This was the only thing that I was going to be able to do, so I better kick ass at it, you know? So I just had, go ahead.
No, it's funny that you say that, because I feel the same way. Like, I think you're just very connected with your authentic and true self. And maybe you didn't have to try really hard to get there. I know some people do. But that's how I felt when I, like, finally connected with who I truly was, and I was, like, listening to my inner voice and that inner guide. I felt like every decision I made was the right decision, and I was so self-confident, and I just knew that things were going to work out. So I think that kind of comes with just being in alignment with who you really are and listening to your true self. I think that confidence kind of comes with that.
Yeah, and that takes practice, you know?
Totally.
Like, I think as millennials especially, we were raised, like, every step of the way we were told what to do, you know? Like, since kindergarten, like, do this homework assignment, and then clean your room, and then go to this college, and then, like, every single step of the way was laid out for us, you know? So suddenly, like, we're expected to actually listen to ourselves and our own intuition and figure out what we need is really challenging for a lot of people. They don't even know where to start.
Exactly.
So that takes a lot of practice, but I think it's just checking in with yourself every single day, you know, and really asking yourself, like, what do I need today to feel good? You know, like, what did I really struggle with yesterday that I can try to improve on today? Just really having that self-awareness, you know, and checking in with yourself every day.
A lot of reflection.
Just being honest with yourself and respecting yourself and your needs.
Totally.
Most people are much more comfortable with neglecting what they need and just sticking with what they're expected to do, but you know, respect what your gut is telling you, you know, and go with it, and 100% you'll always be fine.
I totally agree. So I was just going to ask, actually, I mean, you kind of touched on it, but do you have any practices or, you know, routines or rituals that you have used in the past that helped you, or that you use now to consistently kind of stay in check or in tune with, you know, your true self, your authentic self?
Yeah, so I journal a lot. I'm like a writer at heart. So I love to write, and so I try to journal a lot and just check in with myself a little bit every day, you know. what went well today, what didn't go so well, basic things like that. And then about once a month, I'll sit down and kind of run through like a self-analysis where I'll ask myself some like big, heavy questions. Like, what is motivating me right now? Like, what are my biggest insecurities right now? What am I really struggling with? What's getting me really excited? What are things that I haven't totally figured out? Could be like actual things in my life, like, events that are happening or people in my life, or just intuitions and feelings that I'm having. And I'll sit down for like a few hours, maybe like a full day once a month, and just like really get deep into what's going on with me right now. And it brings a lot of clarity. And I think sometimes, we get so freaked out because when we let all of these fears and ideas and whatever run around in our mind, they just get so tangled up, and to the point where there's just no clarity and it doesn't make any sense. But when you can actually sit down and put it down on paper, it brings a lot of clarity and can show you a lot of things that you might not have noticed before, and kind of guidance for how you should be moving forward. Yeah. So just self-awareness is key. You can't do any of this without self-awareness.
Totally
so just
agree.
Take that time. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I do.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a huge self-advocate. I'm a huge advocate of spending time alone, because I think that's really the best way to hear your inner voice and to really know what you truly want, because we have so many external influences, just in the people around us and then the media. It's really hard to hear what you actually want when there's so much around you telling you what you should want. So it's that time alone, not only to reflect, but just taking time alone, like even every day, and just having some me time is super important. I think that helps to get that self-awareness you're talking about.
Totally.
Yeah. So the journaling thing is also big for me. When you journal, are you just kind of doing brain dumps most of the time? And then, that once a month is kind of when you ask yourself those certain questions?
Yeah. So normally it's just a brain dump. And then I'm one of those people who has like a giant purse of like 6 different notebooks in it all the time. Like why is that necessary? Like that I feel like I need a different notebook for every single thing happening in my life. But yeah, so I just do like a brain dump in one of those journals, and then in the other ones I keep like certain quotes that stand out to me, throughout the day that I come across, or things like that I want to sit down and really reflect on. And then, so once a month I kind of have like a template actually on my computer of like all the big questions that I want to really go through. So yeah, that's kind of how I do it.
When was the last time you did your monthly check-in?
It's coming up. I typically do it at the end of the month.
Okay.
So I guess like end of January, and then probably in the next week I'll be maybe on the flight back to Tel Aviv. I'll take some time to sit down and do that.
Good time to do it.
Yeah.
And then what's like, so you mentioned a few of the questions you ask yourself. I know one of them was like, what's exciting you right now? What might you put down for this month, do you think?
What's exciting me right now? I think what was really exciting for me, let me think about this for a second. There's a few things. So this month was actually really hard for me. I think I told you this, my grandmother passed away.
Yeah, that's right.
Last week.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. So, it's been a challenging week for me and my family, but I do at the same time feel extremely grateful and I guess excited that I was able to fly back on such short notice. And I think that most people, when they're in the 9 to 5 or they don't feel like they have that freedom, maybe they get 2 weeks of vacation a year,
right.
Or whatever. And I've been fortunate enough to actually come back to California maybe like 4 or 5 times this past year, just for any amount of time that I need. I was here for all of December and all of January, just for 2 months, just to like spend time with my grandma, in her last months, spend time with my family. So I feel really, really excited and pumped up to be able to share that message with my community, how you can still travel the world. And I have a lot of, passive income streams at this point where it's not like when I'm traveling, I'm not making money,
right.
where I'm actually continuing to travel, spend time with my family, and I don't have to worry about my business not continuing to generate revenue. So that's something that I'm really actually excited for and grateful for right now, and figuring out, I guess this trip has given me more inspiration to find other revenue streams at this point, passive revenue streams, and how I can basically incorporate that into my business and then share it with my community and clients on how they can do that as well.
Cool. Yeah, that's the ideal situation for sure.
Yeah.
What about one of the, you mentioned insecurities that are coming up for you? Do you have any that you might be putting down for this month, or even one from last month that you had and you want to share with us?
Oof. Girl, these are big questions.
I know, we got to get deep here.
I know, you're right. You know, I mean, it's difficult. I think something that I'm still like constantly overcoming, and this is something that recently it was a mental block that I'm kind of working through now, is that I was raised, and maybe you were raised also, I know a lot of people are, with this idea of like, you can't afford that, you know? No matter how much money that you have, or no matter how fortunate you are in whatever life circumstance you are, you always end up finding yourself saying like, I can't afford that, or I can't invest in that level, you know, or whatever, like even small things. I don't know, my mom was raised in kind of an impoverished, you know, family in the Midwest. And even now, you know, I was very fortunate to be raised in like a middle upper class family in Northern California, whatever. I think that those insecurities that she had about money as a child kind of seeped into the language that she used with us as children. You know, even with small things like, you know, like you can't afford that, or you can get that cheaper at this store, or you should get it on sale here, small things like that. And I think that that always kind of carried with me. And this is something that I'm working through now, is just having the courage to invest in myself at the level that I need to, you know?
Yeah.
So like for a long time, I was holding myself back from like getting a virtual assistant, which is something that I so desperately needed, because like I hated doing like the back end stuff in my business.
Yeah.
And just finally having the courage to do it, get an office space. You know, I got an office space over the past few months that like changed the game for my business. I ended up hiring a really high level business coach that like I never thought I would, you know, spend that kind of money on a business coach. But just I'm still kind of working through this, but just that insecurity of like, can I afford it, and am I worth it? You know, like if I invest in myself at this level, am I worth it? Do I deserve to have these
That's
things?
what I was just gonna say. Like a lot of us, I think we struggle with the feeling of like, do we deserve it?
Right.
I don't know why, but yeah, we feel a little guilty spending that kind of money on us, as opposed to like maybe our family, or, you know, our relationship, or just something that's doesn't seem solely, it seems almost selfish, and we're raised not to be selfish. So it's definitely
exactly.
Yeah,
And even when you do see like points in your business where maybe things like aren't going as well as you wanted them to, or some months are slower than others, or whatever, and then you find yourself like saying to yourself, right, like, do I even deserve this? Like, am I even capable of pulling this off? You know?
Right. Will I be using this money wisely?
Am I using this money wisely? Will I be able to pay it back? It's just a crazy decision. You know, like all of these things, you know, I think I've really struggled with over the past few months, and I'm just now really working through them. And like we said before, stop overthinking it and just doing it, you know, seeing the impact that it will make when you do decide to invest in that assistant or that office space or that coach or whatever. And it does always pay off. It's just that mental block, you know, and telling yourself that you do deserve it. There are unlimited opportunities and resources and money available for you. You just have to have the self-confidence and the courage to go out and get them. And really anything is possible.
Yeah. I was just gonna ask you to maybe like expand a little bit more on like how you've been able to overcome those insecurities, and, you know, the not feeling like you deserve it. Do you work through that in your journals, or is that something you kind of approach every day with like personal affirmations? What kind of things might you be doing?
I definitely work through it in my journals, and I also have been trying to read a lot of books on this subject and just blogs and stuff, a lot of stuff about wealth consciousness and whatever. But I recently read You Are a Badass. Have you read this book?
No, but it is on my list.
Wow, Jen Sincero, she is hysterical. Like, it's just brilliant. You have to read it, but she gets deep into the psychology of wealth consciousness and all of these ideas about how deserving you are and how the opportunities that you have are fully there. And I've now read that book, I think, like 3 times in a row, because it just over and over again, it just inspires me. And I've taken I think a full journal of just notes from that book alone. But just trying to read a lot, realize that I am not alone in this. You know, I think a lot of people think that when they don't inherently deserve things, you feel alone, you know, you feel trapped. You think that you're the only one who's thinking this, and then it makes you feel worse about yourself. But really getting out there and I think expressing these issues to your community or to other people, or, really identifying with other people who have also gone through similar things makes you feel less alone. And it really has inspired me to get out of it. It's not getting stuck in it,
Yeah, definitely. I think that's hard too, because when I was struggling with, not feeling comfortable in the 9 to 5 and just not feeling like it was right for me, I felt like I was the only person who was having these issues, even though obviously I was nowhere near the only person. But I didn't, most of my friends were not happy with the 9 to 5, but I think they just, they were. That's the way they chose to, live their life. They want to do the 9 to 5. They want to be able to check out at the end of the day. And so I didn't feel like I had people to talk to about it, and I felt like I was the only one. So I think it is important to try to find other people who are feeling similar and find your community. And that's the beauty of social media too, is there's so many people out there who you can connect to and get to know. Like, I found you through your Facebook group,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It's important to get out there and try to find people who share kind of your issues and your insecurities. And but it can be hard to find people who are willing to talk about it too, because it's definitely a touchy subject for people.
Yeah, it's a touchy subject for sure, but there are always people out there who are feeling the same as you. It's just about building those relationships and that trust to the point where it's more comfortable talking about those things. But these are big things, but if you are able to find people who have really gone through similar experiences and are working through similar things, it's very validating, that it is okay how you're feeling, and it is possible to get through it.
Yeah, definitely.
So having that community is huge.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I was reading one of your blog posts actually, and you mentioned the word stability and how, a lot of us are so focused on it, especially when we're working that 9 to 5 job, and we're kind of fearful of leaving because it's so stable. And you mentioned that it's a word that's really deeply rooted in fear. And I thought that really resonated with me, and I thought it would resonate with other people. So can you kind of explain what you're talking about there, and maybe expand on that, and how maybe that word in general, or just that thought, has kind of affected you and your journey?
Yeah, I think that the number one reason that people, because I obviously speak to a lot of people in the entrepreneurial space, and also a lot of people who are still in the 9 to 5 and are thinking about leaving. And the number one, for sure, thing that they say about why they don't want to leave is because they value the stability. They value, getting the same income every month, having the benefits, having the same routine, whatever. So it's always about stability. When really stability isn't a value necessarily, I think that stability at its core means playing it safe. It's a safe thing to do. It's something that you can depend on. When really, having something to depend on, or having that safety net, doesn't necessarily mean happiness or fulfillment or being excited or feeling created or feeling accomplished, So I really think that they're very disconnected, and people have somehow associated the word stability with doing well, that is the success point, when really I don't think that that's true. And people need to get past the word stability and really figure out, again, looking inside, being intuitive, and looking, what do they really need beyond that safety net?
Yeah, what's going to make them happy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How would you define true happiness for you personally?
Freedom. That's the only way that I can describe it. Having the ability every single day to wake up and do what I need to do, whether that's, working with my clients, or playing with my puppy, or being with my friends or my boyfriend, or traveling and, spending time with my family. But the times in my life where I have felt the least happy was when I felt trapped by something. And just having that freedom to really feel good in my own skin, to feel good in the decisions that I'm making, to just be able to make decisions that I need to do for myself. There's no better happiness than that.
Yeah, I think that's a great definition for a lot of people too. You mentioned feeling trapped, and that was, maybe a low point in your life. I think that's a word a lot of people will also resonate with. I know it's one that I have as well, feeling kind of stuck or trapped in the life that you've created and not really feeling like there is a way out. Can you talk a little bit more about like what you were going through, and like maybe some other feelings that you were having, that people might kind of understand and resonate with at home?
Yeah, you're saying when I was still in the 9 to 5, or?
Yeah, you mentioned just feeling like when you were least happiest, you were feeling kind of trapped. Like, when was that? What were you going through? What kind of other emotions were you having, or like thoughts, limiting beliefs, maybe?
For sure. Well, I'll tell you. Can I tell you a little story?
Of course,
that like
please
immediately I thought of when you said that.
Yeah.
So when I was in the 9 to 5, I was responsible for putting together this like video for a marketing tool. I was like a marketing person at this company, and I was responsible for putting together a video to promote one of the programs that the company had. So I don't have like any video marketing experience, but this company being super cheap and not wanting to hire a real video person, they're like, oh yeah, we'll just have like the social media girl do it, you know? So I was responsible for making this video, and with like iMovie on my MacBook, I was like, all right, I just got to do it. So of course I didn't have a say in any of this. I was just told what to do, and that's what I was going to do. So I spent like a month, like 8 hours a day for a month, putting together this video. And it was like blood, sweat, and tears, like pulling together all the footage I needed for this video, and all the editing, and all the interviewing, and all the, like, it was so hard for me. And I kept telling my boss, like, I really don't think I'm the right person to be doing this. And he was like, I don't care, just do it. Like, you don't have a say in this, just get it done. So I worked so hard on it, like throughout the night, like neglected any kind of social life for like a month.
Oh no.
And finally, at the end of it, like the due date came, and I presented it to my boss and like 2 other people on his team. And they straight up said to me, like, this is horrible. Like, this sucks. Why did you do it this way? We didn't want it like this. And we like all these things that, of course, I had never heard before. Suddenly, all of these expectations that they never bothered to tell me. You know, like, and this is so bad. I just started crying, like, in front of these people. Like, I was exhausted. I had spent so much time. I was crying. And it was so unprofessional. And I literally threw my computer down and stormed out of the office. Like, I couldn't. And of course, I got in a lot of trouble for that. But then my boss was like, I don't care that you're crying, and I don't care that you're upset, because we have to present it in 48 hours. There was like some big event, and we have to present this video. Get your shit together and figure it out. So he was like, so what I ended up doing with my own money, I can't believe I did this now, like looking back. I ended up like finding a video marketing expert in Tel Aviv, and I was like, you got to help me with this project. And I spent like 48 hours with him. The company ended up paying me back for it, but like they ended up, giving him, paying him, and he put together this whole new video. And his video, I can't even believe this, it was even worse than the one that I had done. Like, it was still bad. And I had to sit there at this presentation 48 hours later after like not sleeping, and it was like being played in front of hundreds of people, and it was so bad that this guy, and I didn't get something as small as like a thank you, or like a good job, or thank you for trying, or like literally zero appreciation, zero respect for like me and the role that I had, like no one even cared, and maybe, and they didn't see why they should have, like I was at the bottom of the totem pole. They were paying me very little money in this role. I was just this like 22-year-old girl who like they didn't care about and didn't respect. And that's when I realized, like, what the hell? Like, why am I... that was like a really low moment. Yeah, like, why am I here? But I felt so insecure, I felt so incompetent. Like, I don't even deserve to have this job. I just felt... And I felt like I didn't even have, like, the right to say something. I didn't even have the right to stand up for myself.
Yeah.
And I think that in that point, that's when I realized, like, oh my God, why would I work for people who don't even have like the smallest amount of respect for me to like say thank you, or to like acknowledge the amount of effort that I put into this for them, And that's when I realized that I need to really stop working for someone else's happiness and really start working for my own.
Yeah.
And that was a huge thing for me.
Wow. Yeah, I think I'm sure so many people have had really similar situations, and I hope that they have, the self-worth to see that, like, that's not the way I should be treated,
Yeah, exactly.
Like you did, that you were able to see past it and think, like, this isn't right for me. It's not something I'm doing. It's just that this environment is not right for you.
Right, exactly. But that's what we're made to think, that like we're the problem, you know, that
Exactly.
like I was doing something wrong. I messed up. I didn't try hard enough. Whatever. And like none of that was true. Like looking back on it, I worked my ass off on that project and it made me feel so bad about myself, you know? Yeah. And I just decided, I think right then and there, that like I will never let anyone make me feel that way again.
So that was like a turning point for you.
A big turning point, yeah, but also a very low point, you know? Like it was really, really tough.
How did you get yourself out of it? I mean, obviously you didn't immediately think, I mean, you said, you know, that was a low point, that you were struggling with a lot of like self-confidence there and feeling, you know, kind of worthless. How did you build yourself back up after that?
You know, I think I found other people. I think that was the point where I thought, wait, I bet I'm not the only one feeling this way. And I started reaching out to other people and trying to make connections with other people who have experienced the same things, just to validate how I was feeling, you know, and to feel like I wasn't alone. So I'm like a serious, hardcore, maybe too much people person. Like I love connecting with other people.
Maybe too much. Never too much.
Yeah, I don't know. But I love connecting with other people. And so I think I turned to like the people that I loved most. And maybe this friend also who you know had his own social media consultancy, and I started talking to him about these issues, and he was really validating, and just some other loved ones, and just realizing that I wasn't alone and that it was possible to do something bigger. Really is what inspired me to kind of get out of it. And I think that was the point where I started thinking maybe this whole full-time thing isn't for me.
Yeah. I think a lot of us need to, we're like we've mentioned, you know, over and over again in this call, like, we're conditioned to think, you know, the 9-to-5 job is just the only way. I think we just need to practice thinking bigger. We just need to open ourselves up to like the possibilities that, you know, there are so many opportunities out there that you can form on your own or with friends, even like outside of that 9-to-5 job. Like back when our parents were growing up, that was really the only thing out there. You know, we didn't have the internet, there wasn't any social media, but there's so many more unique opportunities and things that you can actually make for yourself now. So, I mean, I think we just need to realize like there's so many opportunities out there and we just need to think a little bit bigger.
Yeah, and most people are scared to think bigger, I think, you know, it's overwhelming and it's intimidating and
because you're always afraid of what other people are going to think, like, oh, that's a stupid idea.
That's where it stops. Isn't that so bizarre? Like, that's where the thinking process stops. Like, you start imagining, what am I capable of? What else could I possibly be doing? And then suddenly you're like, you think of, like, some random person who you're friends with on Facebook who's going to ridicule you, you know?
Their opinion doesn't matter, but, like, it feels like it matters. Yeah, and that's what you think of, and then all of a sudden the idea just dies.
Yeah, but I think the people, and this is what I've learned, this is really interesting, but there are people who I used to be fearful, like they're going to judge me that I'm quitting my job and I'm starting my own thing and they're going to make fun of me and like weird insecurities from like high school, you know? Like I would picture like this group of like bullies in high school who are all going to be like snickering behind their Facebook, you know, like laughing at me, like so stupid. But it's funny because, so I started my own business and things were going really well, and then within like a year, these people who I was sure were going to like make fun of me and give me shit for doing this started coming to me and being like, wait, I also want to do this. Like, how did you do this? And exactly, that's what I'm saying. And then you realize like the people who are going to make fun of you or like, you know, think negatively about what you're doing are ultimately just jealous, I think, because they don't have the courage at that point to do what they really want to do. And they see that you are, and it makes them feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah. So, I definitely agree with that. I think a lot of people, like you said, it takes a lot of courage to step out and do something different. And not a lot of people have that. But it is something like you can build up. It's not, I think a lot of us think that it's something that other people are born with. Like we see,
so you know, true.
Exactly. But we see like the celebrities out there or like, you know, people who have turned their blog into, you know, like they're now a worldwide known spirituality, wellness influencer or something, you know, like you see that and you think that they're different. Like they're somebody, they must have something a little different than I do. But it's like you said, it's just not true. You can definitely, everybody can build that up in them. But it does take practice and like self-awareness, like you said, and a lot of inner reflection and work.
And just consistency. You know, I think some people think like, okay, I'm going to like try to be more self-confident. And so they spend like one day, giving themselves these affirmations. And then they're like, all right, well, it didn't work. So now I'm just going to move on to the next thing. All the time, people are like, yeah, it just didn't work. So and I'm like, you tried it for 1 hour. Like, try to do it. Exactly. Like, give things time, things build over time. And you don't always see the impact right away, but it is there,
No, I totally agree. I started meditating like a little over a year ago now, and I really didn't see any real benefits for a good like 6-7 months. And then it wasn't even like overnight. I was like, oh my gosh, all this meditation is really doing stuff for me. But it was, I caught myself in moments where normally I would be, getting upset or feeling some insecurities. And I caught myself thinking like, I'm very calm right now. Like I see things pretty clearly. And like there were moments like that just kept coming up, 6-7 months down the line. And I'm like, oh, okay, so this meditation thing is working. But it did take like a while to really start seeing the effects. So I think, you're totally right. You do need to stay patient with yourself and consistent with your practice.
Yeah, you've inspired me to get back on the meditating game.
I
did it for a few months, but you just inspired me. I need to give it more of a chance. I was trying to do it for like 5 minutes every morning. Just like sit down for 5 minutes and like do it. And then after a few months, I was like, damn it, I'm not seeing anything. This isn't working. But you know what? You just inspired me. I'm gonna start doing it. Oh, good.
It definitely. It took a while. It definitely. I mean, when you're working on yourself, you want things to happen so quickly, but it takes time. But at the same time, like, I don't want people to think like, oh, it's going to take forever. Like sometimes it seems really far away, but it's also not that far away. Like we all know how fast time flies. So, I mean, if you stay consistent and you do things every single day, that effect really compounds and builds up. And all of a sudden you're this new person in 6 months and you don't even really realize it. I mean, until you start encountering moments and situations where you act differently, and then you're like, oh, I'm totally changing.
So true. That's so true.
I think a lot of people don't see it in themselves either. I was talking to my mom about this yesterday, actually, and she was saying how she's just finally started to slow down in her retirement, and she didn't even notice it until other people told her, like, you seem so happy, you seem so relaxed and calm, and she didn't even notice it until other people mentioned it. So it's a change. A lot of times you don't even see the changes, but other people do.
Yeah, that's so true.
All right, I have another question for you. What are your top 3 tips for a happy life?
My top 3 tips for a happy life. The first thing is just really practicing being intuitive, I think, and just regularly, like we were talking about, looking inside and really listening to yourself and to your heart and to your gut and listening to what you need and really just blocking out all these outside forces and influences that it might be telling you to do something. Really listen to yourself, because I am such a big believer that all of the answers are in you. You don't need to go out searching for so much validation or answers. I mean, that's also good also, but ultimately it's all within you and it's there, and just really being in tune with yourself and practicing that is huge. That is the first thing. The second thing, I guess a bit more practically, is just creating a lifestyle for yourself that gives you the freedom that you need. So whether that's traveling or spending more time with your loved ones, or, really getting deep into some, activity that you're into, whatever it is, but creating a lifestyle that really gives you the space and the time to do it with ease and really enjoy it, because especially with work, I mean, ultimately we spend like 90% of our lives working, or something crazy like that. So you have to make it good, you have to make it worth your while. So creating a work lifestyle for yourself that's going to give you that freedom that you need. And the third thing that I think you need for happiness. Oh, these are so tough, Ellie. I should have thought about this beforehand. Oh my God. Okay. Let me think of a good one. Yeah. Maybe the third one for a happy life. I mean, this might also just sound like obvious and cliche, but I think it's obvious and cliche for a reason. Surround yourself by people who really do bring you up. I don't know if you listen to EO Fire with John Lee Dumas, the podcast.
I have before. I'm not consistent with it.
Yeah. He talks about how, like, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Yeah, I like that.
So choose them wisely. So choose those 5 people who you can speak to and surround yourself with every single day, who are going to make you feel fulfilled and who are going to inspire you and raise you up and support you. And anybody else in your life who's anything less than that, like, dump them today.
Get rid of them.
No need. Just get rid of them. Like, even like on Facebook, like, delete the people you need to delete and just like clear, like, you just don't need
especially
any.
Instagram too. Whoever's like bringing you down there, whoever you feel jealousy or like you just don't like on your Instagram page, delete.
For sure. These are like small things that you think wouldn't impact you, but they do. Like, the people who you're interacting with every single day make a huge difference in the kind of person that you become.
Yeah.
So choose those people very, very carefully.
I like that one. That's a good one. If you could go back to a certain point in time, any time in your life where you would want to give yourself some advice, what would you say to your past self?
Yeah. So I had a really hard time in high school and actually, you know what? It's funny. This is getting so much deeper than I thought. I don't think that I've actually ever spoken about this in front of my community or like literally anyone, but I actually struggled with a really severe eating disorder when I was in college. And it started in high school where I was just having a lot of body image issues, very common obviously for teenage girls, like really extreme, that led to very actually destructive behavior. And I think just looking back on that time and thinking of the decisions that I made and the mindset that I had and how I viewed myself and how that impacted like really every aspect of my life throughout high school and college, I think I would just tell myself that, like, you are worthy. You are deserving of everything that the world has to offer you. You are deserving of love, whether it's from like a guy or from your family or from friends or whoever,
or yourself, even,
or of course, especially yourself, and just putting yourself before everybody else, and telling yourself, like, I really was worthy and I was capable of so much, and I had so many amazing traits that I just denied and didn't care about and didn't value because I was so caught up in my weight and how I looked and I guess identifying my self-worth with a number on a scale. That's so messed up, like, thinking about that now. And telling myself that, like, I am capable of, and I see this now, obviously in my own business, but that I am capable of doing anything. Like, there are unlimited opportunities, and love yourself, because, what other choice do you have? Just love the shit out of yourself. That's what I would tell myself.
Don't stop. Yeah.
Don't stop, no matter what.
Definitely. How did you, I kind of want to touch on that a little bit more. Like, how did you, like, that was in college. So, and after college, you moved to Tel Aviv. Yeah. Were you still struggling with that, or was that something that you kind of left behind, in college?
I did not leave it behind. So in college, actually, I studied abroad. I was a Middle East Studies major. And so for a year in college, I studied abroad in Jerusalem. And that year was so hard for me because I moved to a new country where previously I was like one of these people who was obsessed with reading food labels, like every single calorie was counted, and it was like extreme. And then suddenly I moved to a new country where I didn't read Hebrew, so I couldn't like read labels, and I literally went psycho. Like, I was like looking back at myself, like I was crazy. I was so crazy about food to the point where I was so sick living in Jerusalem, so far from my family and everything, that my parents were like, we think that you need to come back early. I didn't end up coming back early in the end, but it was really hard for me. So at that point, I came back from Jerusalem after really struggling that whole year, and I think that's when I realized, like, I need to start seeing someone about this. So I started seeing some eating disorder specialists, both where I live and then in college. But even so, like, it was great seeing a therapist once a week, but it was still really hard to get out of these habits. And it then carried into, when I ended up moving to Israel after college, it certainly carried into it. Less so with, like, the food obsession, but more so in just, like, my self-perception. Like, my self-esteem was still extremely low, even though I was eating a bit better. So then I started seeing an eating disorder specialist in Tel Aviv, like a British woman. So hung out with her for a while. That was cool. And then, and then at that point, I met my boyfriend, who I'm still with now, and I'm not at all saying that like he was the reason that I stopped having these eating issues, because obviously no one can fix that within you other than yourself. But
right. But he gave you some confidence, maybe.
So much confidence, and just having somebody who like loved me unconditionally, you know, and who fully accepted me for who I was, with every flaw, with every, you know, all these things, and just having somebody who was just on my team with me every single day, like, made such a huge difference in my self-confidence and my self-worth. So that was a huge game changer for me. And now I am proud to say I am eating disorder free.
Oh, good.
Yeah, things have really taken a turn in that department. So that's also huge for me.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I'm glad you were able to overcome those struggles, because that's definitely something that a ton of people deal with. I think we've all had, even if not all of us deal with an eating disorder, I think we've all had those same kind of confidence issues around, like, how do I look? Do I look good enough? Right. So that's something. It's so sad that so many of us struggle with it, but yeah, I'm glad that you were able to overcome that.
Again, it's just about reaching out to the people that you need to, you know, like,
right, having that
telling
support
yourself that, yeah,
network.
you do deserve it. Invest in the therapist, you know, get the help that you need. It pays off, and you deserve it. You owe it to yourself, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that self-love and just accepting yourself, even if, you know, you've got those flaws or things, not flaws, but even if you're dealing with some really big issues, still accepting yourself for those issues and knowing that you will get through it, and you're strong for just being here, you know, just being yourself every day and still working towards a better you.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. For sure. Well, Lena, where can people get in touch with you if they want to connect further?
Yeah, for sure. So you can always head over to my website, lenaelkins.com, and you can email me at lena@lenaelkins.com. Pretty easy to remember. And if you're not a part of the Facebook group, head over to Facebook, join Millennial Go-Getters. It's just a really awesome, supportive community of 20-something creatives around the world doing really, really inspiring stuff.
Yeah, so, I agree. It's a fun group. I do enjoy being a part of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Lena. Well, enjoy the rest of your time in San Francisco before you head back to Tel Aviv.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was so fun.
All right, that is all for today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this conversation with Lena. If you found it entertaining or maybe valuable, I would really appreciate if you would leave a review for me. You can do that by going to punchdrunksoul.com/review. And if you'd like to connect with me further, you can find me over at punchdrunksoul.com and on Instagram by the same name, punchdrunksoul. Thanks, guys.